Okay, so the next question I had was right now my I have this mock that does the each one of these, and for it I want to pass the file name through, but the original version of it has an ID passing through. So right now I'm creating this show serviceable,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm then having to then put the file name ones in my production code, and I don't want it in there. I just want to test it. So I'm wondering how I can keep the ones where, like, see how this is ID. So this one means I'm using it in the API. And originally this is how I was doing it, but then I realized because of the way the logic is, I needed to test different instances. And so I
Oh,
needed file name to be passed through. So this works for like normal stuff, but when my logic is based on different versions of the JSON, then this doesn't work for me. And so this, like these two, for example, are all for test. And
mhm.
then let's see, ID. I think those are the two main ones. And then if I go into my serviceable um, protocol, you'll see here. So like right here, file, this one is there as well. So this is the one. This one here I want to get rid of, and this one I want to get rid of because those two methods are mostly for tests, but I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Maybe I create another protocol. I'm not quite sure.
Sounds like another good time for a
We
commercial
found
break.
it. Sounds good.
So tell me, when it's a file name, what does it do with the file name?
It just basically it doesn't run the endpoint stuff, the file name. So if I go back, it loads the JSON and it loads this mockable that I have where it'll
Um,
load the JSON in here and create it just as if I was going to hit the API.
hmm. I wonder if there's any way to basically say and pretend this has an ID.
Um, I originally had an ID passing with file name, but the problem was I wasn't using the file name in all instant. I'm not even really using the ID because the ID is used for the fetch. So I guess I could pass in file name for the
Wait. So if the ID is for the fetch, the file
correct.
name is for the JSON response that
Yes.
that you're faking out?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Uh, Similar to what we did with the series stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to basically have like here's the testable version and here's the non-testable version, but that they unite. That the testable stuff becomes a call to detail inside the non-testable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to do that, so I when it comes to APIs, I'll accept this. You're using these mocks for uh to to fake out.
So I don't have to hit the API each time.
Yeah.
And it's controlled. I mean, I literally can do it takes me a couple minutes to just, go and copy the stuff in
Hmm.
the browser and do
Yeah,
the
yeah. And
calls. But then once I have it, I can keep testing and running it. Now, where the problem is going to lie when So this happened last night as well, is a show actually
Welcome back.
sorry about that.
I you were caught in a loop where
Oh.
you said there was a time when the data ch, ch, ch,
Yeah, so there's a time when the data changed on me and I was testing one thing and I'm like, why is it doing it wrong? And then
oh no.
realized that the date had changed and that it was actually working the right way. So yeah,
Mm.
happened to me too.
So this faking, are you using that then for UI tests purposes?
UI test, I haven't dug deep into it. I did it at the start with searching, just finding the search thing, but I haven't dug deeper. I really would love to because I think that would make my life easier than having to do exactly what we just did, which is go through all of that manually and do it.
Hmm.
But I'm like one step at a time. As long as I can at least get the functionality part, I'll deal with suffering of having to manually do it because back before I met you, I was doing it manually everything. So so,
So,
but I am going to get it. It's on my list of how
mhm.
to's, but
Well,
um yeah.
if we're only talking then about unit tests,
Hmm.
what I usually do is instead of testing any sort of round trip, even faking a round trip uh, to an API and back again, I test two things. One is I will test the request. Did I make the form the request, content correctly, and just
Hmm.
test that. And then with various test data, JSON coming back, say, now let's continue from the part where it handles the response, and I'll test that.
Okay.
So it's broken into two, and that way, um, it doesn't have to go all the way through. It's just basically taking half of the trip, and that makes it easier to say, try it with this JSON, that JSON, the other JSON.
Right. Which right now it is how it works. I don't believe I don't have it testing the other part of the JSON, but if I give it a JSON file from the feed from the API, it works fine.
Mhm.
Um, well,
So
yeah, it works fine.
yeah. If you want to keep going for a bit, I'm still game.
Okay.
But you'll have to share your screen again.
Oh, yes. Sorry. All right.
All right. So let's do. So you've got the different versions of this. Show me where like one of these is called take. Yeah.
Okay,
Take any one of these and show me the call point.
so this show mockable is basically the same functions. So this is the mocking version, and then the actual service is doing these calls. So these are the same methods,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not feeding in JSON. I'm actually doing the success. So here, like on file name, you can see 999. I'm just faking, like I'm just passing in a
Ah,
number
fake ID.
because
Yeah.
I'm not really using this method to do anything.
Await request. Hmm.
Yeah, so I have a generic endpoint that runs this function and then return, so I can just pass in any object. and get back a data result and a error from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just test the result. And then that is passed back to whoever makes the call. So in the API version, I use this one. In the mock version, I have this service mock, which basically acts like the show service before, but instead of doing it, I do a success and then I pass back and I just run this load JSON, which then basically does the parsing and doing everything that the other one does.
Okay. So go back one and into the where is it doing the actual here, go into the request your nice request method there. Yeah. That's what I want to see. So this is setting up a bunch of stuff in the URL, blah, blah, blah. Scroll down a bit. And where's the endpoint? There. There I see the URL session. Okay. This is getting into familiar territory for me. What I like to do is say is I like to test this method by substituting during testing a different URL session. That's a fake. That's actually just listening for stuff and is able to have stuff jammed into it.
Okay.
And we can do this in a few short steps. It is calling URL session shared data for request. Go to the definition of data for request, Apple's thing. That there. Copy this signature, this whole thing. Yeah. And we are going to make a fake. Make a new protocol that has just that method in it. So I would make it a brand new protocol, call it like, I don't know, URL session something something. I get lazy and I call it, yeah. That's good. And paste it in. Nice. Except it can't handle the nil.
Right.
And so, right, I do actually, does it need the question mark there? I think, yes, just that much. Does it? It seems to like that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this basically, this is the part in Apple code that we want to fake out. And we do that by defining a protocol. And we can extend URL session and say, it conforms to this because it already does.
Okay.
So make an extension on your URL session.
All right. Let's go into network.
Yeah. Nice. And have it conform to URL session something. And ta-da, that's it. That is the extension.
Okay.
What this lets us do is because this is the only method we're calling, we can now pull the rug out in the method, in the actual method that we're trying to test, and say, we're not going to use a URL session with everything that comes with it. We're just going to use this thin, narrow slice of it that we've defined in our protocol. Because
Okay.
then we can have fakes that also conform to that protocol.
Okay.
So go back to your call code. Yeah, that's it. And let's add a new parameter with a default value and call it like URL session.
In here or in?
Yes, in your request params.
Oh, okay. So
So tack it on at the end there. Yeah, URL session maybe.
okay.
Except the type will be of something, URL session something. It's our narrow type. But by default, it will use the real thing. So it'll be equal URL session shared. Now, if we can come to where the URL session shared is, where it's used, I'm sorry, down below, and replace URL session dot shared with our new parameter. So that was on line 35. So leave most of it, but get rid of URL session dot shared. Now bring back the rest of it. Yeah,
Get rid of
that's the
data.
call we want to make. Data for
Okay.
request. So replace URL session dot shared with our parameter and
Oh,
have it called
okay.
data
I see. So replace it with that.
dot
Is that-
data for request. Now it's a, a little bit messy. We can clean it up, but we can say data for request and the delegate is nil. We can actually clean that up in the extension. But there, right now, because we've moved things around, it is still calling URL session shared because that's the default value.
Got it.
But the tests now have control and they can say, not the real URL session, use this fake thing that all it's going to do is record um, the let me test the how the URL is put together and lets me jam um, JSON responses into it.
Got it. Okay. I'm still not seeing it yet, but I get
Okay,
where it's going.
let let's let's write a test. But actually, before we do,
Mhm.
we can clean it up one more step, I think, and that is in back in the extension. We can add. Uh, so if you go to our URL session plus, we can add a a data for request, um, but not in the protocol. In the extension itself, I think. Oh, I don't know if we can, but let's try it. So it will be the same signature, but without the delegate. And that will just call the regular one passing in nil as the delegate. So it's a bit of trickery because protocols can't have default parameters as of today. Tomorrow, who knows? It might be easier.
So what do I do at the as the return?
Return data. Call the one that already exists. We'll see if it lets us do this. Yeah. Data for URL request delegate. There. So pass in request and nil. So that's, and looks like it needs a try. Okay. Fix that. That's just a workaround for Swift not letting us do the default in the protocol. So if we go back now to your request code, we can get rid of that nil delegate and set it back the way we had it on line 35. We can get rid of delegate nil, just so it looks like it did before. Okay, now let's write a test.
Oh,
It didn't like it.
Nope. Probably
because it's not in the
not in the
protocol.
protocol.
It's not in the protocol. Okay. There, either we add it to the protocol or we punt. Maybe I shouldn't have gone down this road and say, forget it. We're just going to pass nil at the call site. That would be the easiest way forward right now.
Yeah.
Undo, forget it. We can maybe fix it later.
So just
rip it out.
This whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just keep it simple. Keep it simple, John. Okay. Now we can write tests directly against request. By creating something, a testable URL session or a fake URL session that we control. Okay. So let's start writing some test code.
So this one is going to be on specifically on the, what is that? HTTP client. So HTTP client test. Okay.
Rip out its guts as usual. There we go. Now we can write a test. Let's check the, I don't know if we want to check the request or if you want to go straight to trying a response.
Let's do one of each. That way I see where you're going. Because
that's a good idea.
There.
Okay, so let's test request.
Fine with me. And do I need to do async or no?
We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's begin calling that method, however that works. What do you need to do that?
In the Which one? I think the one you're referring to is in the show service.
Well, this would be directly to the HTTP client itself. So skipping this. Oh, there we go. Okay.
The request here.
I see what you're doing. Um, yes. Something like that. Now, I guess it's going to have to be async to be able to handle that await.
Yeah, probably. It's not finding request
Because
it
request
has
is
to be on
inside of,
the HTTP client.
yep. Oh, no, is the HTTP client, is it what is HTTP client?
Is the protocol.
Oh, it's a protocol. And it's an extension. All right. How do we do this? Go ahead with what you were doing then. Making the test also conform to it. Will that work?
I don't think so. I tried it, did seem like it. I would assume if I'm guessing correctly, it would be similar to how we did the mocking one. So not this one, but the show. This mockable is this one. And then I have show service mock. Show service mock. So I'm assuming it's similar to the way that I did this one. So I created a class and then I subclass the HTTP client here. And
Okay.
is that the same sort of concept? So it's final class, and then this would be HTTP client mock, HTTP client, and then in here I now have access to
Mm-hmm.
the request object. Is that where we want to be?
Hmm. It may be, except put it in test code. Uh, oh, we are in test code.
Yes.
Um,
I can just
grab this. Yes.
and move it back to
Yeah, stick that out there somewhere. So request and so now we can make, I might, it's not exactly um, a mock, but I mean, it depends what you mean by mock. I like to call things like testable.
that's fine.
Uh, yeah. Can code be nothing? Does that work?
Not complaining yet.
Okay. So that is request T, and then we'll make a testable and then call request on it. So above this line at line 13 and a half, let's make HTTP client testable, an instance. Yeah, like that. Then can we call HTTP client dot request? Please be happy. Please be happy. Not quite. Okay, fix. Return, okay. I don't care yet. So what will silence this?
Return an instance method of results request error.
So return dot success something.
That
Some
was in my
any decoded thing will do. Yeah.
of course.
Mm.
Not quite sure what to pass here. So right now is load JSON. Load JSON is passing through. Yes. There.
You're gonna make it markable and get okay. Will this test has no assertion at this point? Actually, we don't want to call it yet. There's one, we want to add the one more parameter, which is our URL. Yes, our URL session, except this time we're going to make a fake.
Okay.
So make another class that's like our fake URL session or something. And have it conform to the something protocol. All right. Say yes, go for it. And the first thing it's going to do, I guess it needs to return something. Can we just make it return empty data and something? I don't know.
I don't know. Non-void return value. So here.
So construct an open, just a data that's empty, data open close.
Data like that.
Data open close parens so that it creates empty data, and that's half of the half of it. The URL response will have to make one also. Yeah, see if we can just return an empty thing. I'm just trying to keep the compiler quiet on us because we're not there yet.
Okay.
Things might blow up, but what I want to do is grab in this fake, it gets the URL request in the request parameter. And that's the part we can start testing by jamming it up into a property. So take the request and save it in a property. In a new property of fake URL session.
So I'm creating a new property.
Not there, but
Oh,
inside of fake URL session at like 21 and a half. Let's add a property here of type URL request. Yeah. And inside, you know what? Make it a, for now at least, make it a optional URL request so that we can leave it nil. Yeah. And then in the data call, we'll take the request and we'll assign it before the return. So at line 24 and a half. So URL request equals request. This captures it, and then our tests will be able to query it. All right. Hopefully all this is working. I still expect the test will blow up, possibly because of the fake data and the fake URL response. But let's add this as, let's create a fake URL session before this call. Because we need to get at its property. Yep. And pass it in to the call itself. So now it is the missing extra parameter.
this one here.
Yes. So if you copy URL session, fake session, and then undo, we can just tack it on the end of what we had before. Like that. Let's run this test and see if it just blows up.
Wait, you need me to write a test or just run it?
No, I just want to run it just to see where it falls down. Because this is not quite. Hmm?
Now the HTTP client is now getting wants request because request is in. Oh, why is it asking for request?
How'd we end up here at show service?
Doesn't conform to the client. Show service doesn't conform to the client.
Did it before? Is this,
Yes.
how did it?
We changed HTTP. Oh, because of this URL session is changed.
Oh, uh,
So the only way, that's kind of why was struggling with getting it to work. The only way it would work is if I put it here and got rid of that.
uh, okay.
This
Let's
should conform now.
let's do it. And
There it is.
okay. All right. Now, if we try this test again by itself.
It's fine so far.
Launching, testing. Okay. Now we should be able to write an assertion that says, hey, fake session, give me your URL request, and I want to ask it some questions.
All right. So assert equals.
I don't know. What can we ask the fake
I'm still
session?
not there yet. So until
Okay,
I understand what we're doing, it's hard for me to know how to
that's
help.
that's
So,
fair. That's
okay.
fair. Why don't we say fake session dot URL request in the assertion. So we've got the fake session. And we can ask the URL request what what's special about it? Is it the URL itself? Probably. Um, so let's take the URL and we probably have to convert the URL to string. Yeah, there. Run this test. I expect it to fail and to tell us the actual URL. How's that?
Works. And then I just need to use, so right now it's using show detail, but I really want to say, let me get a real endpoint and then that'll make more sense. So show service and here show service shows by genre. And then this one here. And then I can do, this isn't going to actually hit a feed, right? So
Right.
if I just
So it
do
can be anything.
416, which actually is a number, and then the
The
page,
page will be what?
and we test one more time.
Let's see what it says for the failure.
There we go.
How's that? One
That's cool. Yeah, that is definitely helpful in regards to going and seeing the URL and making sure it's right, cuz like I tested that on my own, but I did
right.
it
So now
manually.
to get this test to pass, you just copy that string and stick it in. This is called characterization testing, where you call the thing and say it equals empty string. Okay. It now I get the error the test failure result, and I'm going to run it again by jamming in the answer it gave me. And there we go. We have a test that is checking that for that specific input, it's passing 1416 and calling with genres. Yeah. So that is a test of a request.
That's cool.
Is that starting to hang together a bit more?
Yes, now I see where you're going with that.
Okay.
And now it's just the other side of it that I'm curious how to do, and I think
Right. So now let's take um let's make another test. Let's make another test where we're going to test the response this time.
okay.
Yep. It's going to have the same shape. It's going to have a lot of the same stuff. only this time we also want to load up the fake URL session and say, here's that JSON I want to jam into you that you're going to return.
Okay.
So grab a file name or some JSON itself. Let's see what will be the easiest way to do this.
I already have
You've
JSON.
been passing in file names, so
Yep.
it should be fairly easy to go to your implementation of where you have that. So go to one of the places where you have a hard-coded reference to load up a file.
Oh, let's go to here.
Yeah, one of these. Um,
So this is file name, that's generic, and then this is just a file, an actual file.
load JSON file name type.
So I can just pass that through.
Yes, I think. What is the, can you show me load JSON?
Sure. It's just basically the decoding stuff that
Mm-hmm.
we're doing, but it's mocking it and doing it from JSON.
Yeah, yeah. This, and it returns
It'll return
T,
a
whatever T is. Okay.
yes,
All right.
which in this case will be series season data.
Yes. Okay. So let's grab the load JSON call or copy it.
Okay.
And what we want is in our test, we want to pass the load JSON to fake URL session. So fake URL session is going to get a new parameter.
Okay.
Not sure what that's going to look like, but uh, data. Hang on. Hmm. This will work. What I'm imagining is a an initializer that takes, maybe it takes the name of
File.
the file. I'm kind of wanting the fake URL session to call load JSON instead of the test.
Okay.
Um, can it take the file and the type as parameters?
In data.
No, in a in an in a new initializer or as not an initializer. It can just be properties, right? Oh wait, no, it's a class, so it's gonna need it. Let's have it take a string and a type. So it's file, yeah. And type will be an actual type, not a string. What will it be? Will this become generic? Because now we should be able to pass in the initializer or create an initializer that takes the file name and the type. I don't know. Generics always confuse me.
Um, so we want a response model. Is that what we're response model of of type T, just like it's done down here?
Yes. Um, I mean, what we ultimately what it needs to do is it needs to return it as the data. Right now we're returning data of nothing, and we want it to return data with the JSON inside.
I got it.
So to
So
keep
here,
this
T
simple,
decodable with T. We're really returning the decode response, right? So wouldn't that just be?
I may have overcomplicated it. Um, and maybe my initial idea of I want the fake to call the load JSON is out of place. What if what if it just takes data? Say, just give me data.
Okay.
Let's do that. So have it take a data type. Uh,
Down here.
yeah, we'll just call it data. And it will be of type data. And this will need an initializer. So don't don't provide the data there. Make an initializer like that. Leave out the URL request from the initializer and just pass in the data like that. This breaks our previous test, but we can fix it up real quick
Okay.
um, by passing in, for the first one, we'll pass in empty data like we had before because we don't care. For the second one, we're going to pass in, let's call the load JSON above this, and we're going to turn, so that goes into series season data. Oh, where's load JSON? Oh, it's in a mockable. Does it have to be? Do we need a mockable? Does this need to be mockable? Does some?
I mean, I could technically just create a mockable
Mm-hmm.
and then do um, mockable is a
The
protocol.
mockable is a protocol, right? So it needs to be
That's a good
a
question.
specific one.
Um, so earlier I did that, and that is conforming to mockable.
Okay,
So
that's a decent starting point. So we'll make that.
um, as um,
Lep, initialize. So now can we call mock dot JSON or something? Now, is the series season data encodable? Like this looks like it probably,
It's decodable. It's both. I've set it as codable.
okay.
Oh, I used to have it as codable. I changed it, I guess.
So this is, it's a bit more work than we actually need, but just trying to get to the win easily is give me the series season data, and we want to now encode it as data, as plain old data. This is where I always cheat by like going to Paul Hudson's stuff and saying, "How do I do this again?"
I want to encode to data. That
We need a JSON encoder, I think. Yeah, I think we need to make a JSON encoder and blah 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 blah. Save us, Paul.
yeah, I found this is what you're
So
referring
that's
to.
a decoder. That's the opposite direction,
Oh,
I think.
encoder.
Or is that right?
Yeah, we're
Encoding and
encoding.
decoding.
Yeah.
JSON encode. Oh, there, right there. Um, you make the encoder, you have
This is the type you pass through. So this right here is it.
I don't know.
We're trying to make it.
What I really wish is that we could skip this because you've already loaded up
Yeah,
the
well, my
file.
mock actually loads and returns the data. So this already does
Right.
the JSON
It does the
decoder,
decoder there.
and then
Um,
passes it.
except what I want is there's the try data contents of path. I just want that data, you see.
Right. Bundle mock extension. I don't know
What if
why you
what if
can't.
you extract in from inside of load JSON, um we get just the part up to the data. Uh
This is decoding though. This isn't encoding.
yeah, but it's reading the file, right?
Yeah, it's pulling the bundle URL here,
Yeah.
the
So
extension.
that's really the part we want. And I doubt that Xcode will let us extract it
I can just
automatically.
copy the function and move it into
Hmm.
the. This isn't needed.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I could just move it into here.
Except on, there we go. That's a good idea. Um, and rip out, like just take it where it goes up to making the data and it just returns it.
Yeah, that's what
So
this is right here.
so not decoding it, but just returning the data.
Oh, I see. So just that.
Yes. It's still going to
Oh,
need to make it from the contents of path. Yep. And now we change the return type. Oh, no, not as T. Um, return data and change the return type to just data, not T. So
got it.
this becomes non-generic, at least at that front. Not even sure if we need the type anymore because we're not going to decode it. Rip out the rest of it. Or no, you already did. So hopefully we can get rid of the type as well.
The type is the class.
Yeah, but if all we're doing is reading the file and turning it into data, I'm not sure we need the type. Will it still generic T? What? Yeah, get rid of that. Da, da, da. Will you be happy, Swift?
Yeah, it's working
Okay,
for now.
good, good. Now we need to change the fake URL. No, the HTTP client testable to say because it's yeah, go into its definition. Oh, that's not the one. Sorry. There, right up above it, the fake URL session, where we're currently returning no data. It's like return data, right? So we pass in the data for it to return. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is called stubbing the result.
Got it.
So there's the JSON we loaded in. Okay. And now we should get a result. Let's run this and see if it dies without an assertion. Okay, it doesn't die. Now we should have a result that we can query and see, did it load up at least something from Yellowstone details correctly?
Okay.
So this will be the result should equal.
Now, because it's a wait, maybe I need to do a success failure,
Um,
or do I not need to do that?
I'm not sure how much we want to test from the response. Uh, what we can do is we can get the let me quick look up. Here we go. We can do a guard case let and say guard case let dot success of something, I don't know what. Um, so in parens, whatever the contents of the success is.
I think I have this stubbed out already. Let me just right here.
Yeah. Yes, like that. Very much like that, actually. So switch on result there. And get rid of line 37 and give it a run.
Oh, this is aired, but I guess that does still
Right?
show.
It'll probably, if it matches, great. If it's different, that's fine too.
Oops.
Oops.
Request should not fail.
Why
I
did
think it was because of what I asserted, maybe. Series dot name. I get rid of this here.
no, it's coming through to fail for some reason. Maybe because we provided,
Oh, I think it's so that fetch show by genre is not actually the right fetch
for Yellowstone.
for series data. So fetch this one, fetch series by genre it really should be it should be show detail
Okay.
because that makes sense. Endpoint is show there. Show detail. Oops. Detail with ID 1416. And then that should give me back series data. So let's try that. Nope, still failed. Um, that's the endpoint. And then if I go into show service and I look at fetch show, see how this one does that.
Are you sensitive at all to the URL response? Like, are you checking the return code, whether it's 200 or not?
Yeah, I'm checking that in the request right now.
Yeah. So I think that's what's happening is we haven't completely stubbed out what's going on. Let's see. Um,
Maybe it says it down here. No, it's not showing. Um, it looks like those are the same. I don't see anything response series URL session. I don't see anything different. Oops, from the original call to this call.
well, what we can do is actually debug through it because it's returning failure. And we can see where we're falling down.
Okay.
So set a breakpoint on request itself. Yeah. Anywhere is fine.
Oh, is it getting? It may be. It may breaking.
Ah, maybe. We'll see. We'll find out. And run this one by itself. Okay, here we are.
So it got past that failure.
Let's step a bit. Is it deserializing? Okay. Where did we end up?
I don't know. It didn't. It
Let's
didn't
try it
actually.
again.
Yeah, break the right. It's going through and go through each of my breaks. So let's see.
Like, how are we getting to a failure case?
It has to be this one, invalid response, because none of these called.
Response, it's getting the HTTP URL response, which we're not providing it.
That has to be where it's breaking.
Okay. So come back to our, we have so many moving parts right now, it's hard to keep track, but where we are currently just returning a URL response, and I think that was in our fake URL session. Yes. Instead of returning URL response, let's make let's re let's make an HTTP URL response. So the correct type. And it's going to need a little more than that, though. I think it's going to need an error code. Do that one. So the URL is the URL. Status code can be 200, and the rest can be nil. Let's try that.
Doesn't like URL.
Oh, URL can be the request.url. Say that's the URL we're dealing with. So it's a little more realistic. Is that cannot convert? Oh, we need to cast it.
Oh,
The whole thing, the URL. So it's the HTTP URL response. I think we need to cast it, the whole thing. Maybe not.
as HTTP.
No, this is the URL, isn't it? So um, can I see the error again?
Yeah.
Data.
It's
HTTP.
just URL
Oh,
response.
okay. So it's failable. So no, set it back to HTTP. And so it looks like it's failable. So put a bang on the end of the header fields nil, close paren. Yeah. Let's see if what it says now. Hmm,
It's asking for
okay.
nope.
What?
URL.
Huh.
Really? Oh, and it's asking me for another one.
Let's
Is
just
that
put a bang on it.
I tried that, it didn't work either.
Didn't.
Oh, there it goes.
I
Okay.
don't mind bangs in test code.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hey,
There we go.
Yellowstone.
Nice. So if I change just for even though this doesn't, so this is good, but it doesn't get, it still doesn't put me in a spot where I need to, like, this tests the actual data. Um my problem is testing the logic
Yeah.
with with different JSON. But I
Mhm.
think I get where you're coming from. Like, this is great. I can use this.
Yeah, I
But
think you can expand this now to your next level of saying, um, y-
I need to figure out how to get it out of the JSON. But I think what you did earlier may work in the sense of, if I go back to the here, um the protocol has the file name, but I should be able to do, so that's the mockable version. The one that I'm doing here, this show service right now, the, so I have, for example, this one. I think if I, what we did earlier, I believe I can take this fetch shows, which one was that? Fetch show episodes,
hmm,
get rid of this one and just do comma equals that. Does that work? Let's see. Oops. Not. So show serviceable. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't let me do. Do I still need to do comma file name? Yeah, I think that's really the way that I have to make it work. And then when I'm doing it in the service mock, I ignore these two values.
mhm.
And when I'm doing it in the actual API, I ignore the file name. I think that's
So,
the only real way that I can keep it so that I don't have to have two functions for each one.
but now we have a URL session, whatever we called it, a fake,
Hmm.
and you might be able to pass it along and say, this is the URL session I want you to use. Again, in the real world, use real URL session.shared, but in the fake world, use my fake so that I can ask it questions or load it up with stuff.
Okay.
And and I think that will begin to unify all these different cases you have where uh, instead of passing in Yellowstone details, that would come from the test to say, this is what it's going to return. It's going to return Yellowstone details.
Right.
And
Which
the
is,
rest of it should sort itself out.
yeah, I mean, that is what I'm doing now. The difference, the only thing is I'm making two calls. I'm like, here, see, so I'm doing, it's
Mm-hmm.
fetching the details here, and then it's fetching the episodes together. And then with this data combined, I'm able to pass it to my series episode, and it's basically behaving just like my logic is in my app. So here I just have to give it two things. My only concern was the naming, but now with, so like here, file name, I don't need these two, and I'll use the one that shows ID and int. So here ID, and then this will be whatever. and then this one has ID colon 9 season colon 1, and then that should do that one. So now I have in my mocks, I'll have this when I don't really need it. Or
Hmm. Which is
actually I could honestly, I think now I think of an idea. Why can't I just do this is my mock, right? So why can't I do a default value
hmm
here?
hmm
And then oops, and then I don't need
pass it in. Yeah.
pass it in. Oh man, why didn't I think of that before? And then here I can say the same thing. And then file name, go back, and then now it does exactly what I'm looking for on both sides. So I use ID and number when I need it, and then I ignore file name when I don't.
Nice.
That that's really what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Having
So
to
we did a bit of runaround there.
no, that
That might
actually
have
was
been
good.
unnecessary.
No, 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 it wasn't because that other stuff is to me is necessary eventually. I um I started with this because I found it online. I was able to use it. And so
Mhm.
that gives me a bridge between all the other different things. So doing that was useful, but when you did something that kind of triggered, oh, wait a minute, I could just do this and then and not have to create two functions and I can do it. Cause I like originally in my head, I'm like, why can't I just create another function with file name and then it shows up as two functions? And there is a way to do that, but
I
I wasn't thinking of how to make it work. And so this actually works perfectly fine.
I
Um,
actually think the protocols and the generics on the test side are making this harder.
mm,
Because you notice um, in the test we wrote, where you had the simpler load JSON that wasn't trying to decode it in and so on, um, the generics went away. It was
mm,
just like data, bleh. Uh,
right, right. The generics did go away, but I think I don't know. I think they're both useful depending on use case. So knowing
yeah,
them is good.
could
Um,
be.
in this particular use case, I feel like the data for what I want to do as closely as the actual way it performs gives me the ability to test because I've tested it the other way and it didn't work. So like my test worked, but then when I ran the code, it didn't because originally I had my logic separated a bit.
Mhm.
So it did some logic and then it did it in the method. And so I finally was like, okay, I need to take all of the logic and move it into the function. Then that way I can test it the way I want. And then all I have to do is just inject the the two pieces of data and then let it work through what it needs to work through depending on the show. So that, that is good. And learning the way that you're doing it gives me another aspect of like how I can do it and when it's not something like this.
Right,
Need to
right.
kind of understand it a bit more and dig through the code and mess around with it because I right now it just worked and I'm like, okay, not
Mhm.
100% sure. Doesn't click to me where it works.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it only
but I
works
know it works.
on the one request method, which is doing the full round trip, right? But
Right.
we inserted the fake so that we can say intercept. I want to read the URL request. Um, Reply with the stub jammed in JSON that I got, and so something that I think you're hearing me say is like let's try for something smaller and
Mm-hmm.
that usually means like pulling something out or but having done that, and if you explore that a bit more,
Mm-hmm.
it might then be possible to extend the same ideas, even if it's not the same code, up to your bigger test. But it's always easier to start smaller
Okay.
and expand out from there.
Yeah, I mean it's great. I like it. Like I said, I'm I wanted to be able to do two different gets, and that I figured out yesterday, and being able to run two of the feeds, because in this
Mhm.
app it's step by step, and I'm like, well, I can't do step by step. So I'm like, I want both of the data objects, but I don't want to have to create the objects. And so this was great in the sense of getting me there, but then that like sort of step where, in my tests I want to just pass the file name, and in my API I just want to pass the IDs and the stuff that I need. And so now, it was actually simpler, and I just overthought it, which is usually the case. So, I end up having to go keep it simple. Instead, I end up overthinking it and trying to make things more elegant. Like I'm always like,
Mm.
how do I make this simple? How do I make this a lot easier? And then I end up overthinking it or over architecturing it. And so, yeah.
That's where I
Um,
find tests keep me honest
yes,
because
they
it
they do.
basically the rule of thumb is if something is hard to test, then
Refactor it.
change the design. And often that means pull out the thing that I want to test and try again.
Yeah, even with this logic, I there was one thing that I figured out maybe a few out this morning, where I wasn't testing some piece of data and it kept coming back, and then I would fix it, and then two more tests would break. And then I'm like, okay, so this isn't it. So then I looked at the JSON again, and then I realized that okay, so in the feed, it has in the one for Shogun episodes. So the one thing, so here Shogun has a date,
Hmm.
where the one that doesn't have a date is Daredevil. So Daredevil's air date was nil.
Uh-huh.
And that was where it was breaking. And so what I have to do is say, um, does any of these episodes, are all the episodes nil? And then, even though there's only one episode in this particular case, by checking that first, I'm able to then say, hey, this is an upcoming event,
Hmm. Hmm.
versus the other ones where it actually had a date, and that air date is important, because now I can say, oh, okay, it's 60 days from now, or it's 100 days from now. And so that's where that one stipulation and how I was doing it, um it like I had to create a function that goes has nil, like I basically pass all the episodes in, and then it checks every single episode to see if all of them are nil, because I wanted to make sure all of them were nil,
Uh-huh.
which technically the way this API works, it's only going to give me one.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. I just needed to make sure that that was satisfied. And once I figured that out, then everything else kind of aligned in place. So um for now it's good, but now that I'm able to like put breakpoints into my test and my code, I can then see where things are breaking, and why it's setting it to this. And so then that's when I had to redo it. I went and back and redid it step by step, like, okay, this one works. Then I added another test, and then I redid it. And so it's been a battle, but it's been fun to figure it out and make it work. So
Well, I'm starving, so I gotta go.
oh yes, do your thing.
But
That works.
I
And
hope this was helpful.
it was in the sense that it showed me some things that I didn't necessarily wasn't necessarily looking to do, but it did help me. And I think the next step that I'm going to work on this week is making, so my goal is functionality wise, getting I want to do background tasks where it like maybe every week or every few days it checks to see if an episode now has an air date and then moves things around.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to be able to do that. And then the other thing is I don't have an ability to, the feed doesn't have the ability right now for me to say, okay, this episode changed from um having not having an air date or not having an air date to having one.
Mhm.
And I want to basically be able to do that sort of test. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. So that is probably next on my list on figuring it out. And I have like probably about 6 or 7 more things that I need to understand for testing purposes. But yeah, this
You're
is,
dealing with, like I said, really interesting edge casey stuff. And that's,
yeah, but this will make me better tester when it comes to the simpler things. So
it
uh,
will.
and I now know that I feel confident knowing when I send a build to people that for the most part, most of the stuff that I've tested, and then all the testers are my friends. So I'll basically say if you add a show and it doesn't appear where you think it appears, it should send me the name of the show, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
I can add it to my test and add it.
Yeah. And find that,
So,
that
what
weirdo,
weirdo
other
outlier.
thing that you hadn't thought of. Yeah.
Correct.
That's great.
So one
That's great.
person during the week said soap operas, and soap operas are weird because they actually never end. They're continuous. So and the way that the API works is it gives you like 7 episodes, and then it'll give you 7 more episodes and 7 more episodes. So for soap operas, when I see the tag for soap opera, I will show an alert that will say, basically these shows never end, so they'll never give you an actual time when it's ended for you to watch. Instead of removing it, that's pretty much what I'm going to do. And then any other outliers, I'll probably have to do the same thing. But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
soap operas were given to me during the week, and I figured it out. I got it to work, but it still never ends. So it's always going to show 7 episodes. It'll drop maybe to 4, and then it'll show 7 episodes again. So yeah. Anyways, go eat.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Like I
you.
said, sorry for the detours there, but hopefully there's something useful even in the midst of them. Glad we got some other things sorted.
Yes.
And it's
I'm
fun.
sure you're gonna get a DM from me
Ah, ah,
in the next few days, but my goal this week is getting Swift data working, and I sort of know how to do that. I just didn't have time today to figure
yeah,
it out. So
yeah.
that's the next thing.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Take care.
I appreciate your time.
You bet.
All right. You have a good rest of your weekend, and I'm sure I'll see you. You going to Chicago still, right?
I will see you there.
I will definitely see you there. Go to lunch or dinner or something. So
Yeah, yeah.
thank you very much, John.
All right.